It's payday. The notification lands on your phone, and for one quiet second, you feel rich. You promise yourself, again, that this month is different. This time, the savings transfer happens first. But 3 weeks from now, the money will be gone, and you won't even remember where it went. Why does this keep happening? You're not broke. You're not careless. Something else is going on, and it has almost nothing to do with discipline. The real reason is far stranger than anything your banking app can show you. Here's what's actually happening. Your brain doesn't see money as one single thing. It sees many different pots of money, each with its own invisible label. Rent money feels untouchable. Grocery money feels practical. But extra money, the kind that shows up unexpectedly or just sits in your checking account after bills, feels almost weightless. It feels like it was never really yours to begin with. The economist Richard Thaler spent decades studying this. He called it mental accounting. The idea that people treat money differently, depending on where it came from and where it's mentally stored, even though a dollar is a dollar, no matter what account it sits in. Your brain doesn't run on logic here, it runs on labels. And the label on your leftover money quietly whispers, "This one's safe to spend." That's the first piece, but it's not the whole story. Think about the last time you decided to save instead of spend. What did that decision actually feel like? For most people, saving feels like a loss. You're not gaining anything in that moment. You're simply not buying the thing you wanted, and your brain is wired to feel losses far more intensely than equivalent gains. This comes from the work of psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who showed that the pain of losing something is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same amount. He called part of this loss aversion. When you transfer money into savings, your brain doesn't register it as building a future. It registers it as money disappearing right now. The reward, the actual benefit of that saved money, lives somewhere far away in time. The loss lives right here, today, fully felt. So you're fighting a battle where the cost is loud and immediate, and the reward is quiet and distant. Which side do you think wins more often? Now here's where it gets stranger. There's a reason that distant reward feels so quiet. It's not because you don't care about your future. It's because your brain barely recognizes your future self as you at all. Researcher Hal Hershfield ran brain scans on people while they thought about their current selves and their future selves. Years down the line, the scans showed something unsettling. When people imagined themselves in the future, the brain activity looked less like thinking about yourself and more like thinking about a stranger. Your future self, the one who will actually benefit from tonight's saved money, barely registers as you at all. That changes everything. You're not failing to save for yourself. In a strange neurological sense, you're trying to give money to someone who doesn't quite feel real to you yet. This is why willpower alone rarely fixes saving habits. You can't out-discipline a brain that doesn't fully believe the beneficiary exists. So if it's not about discipline, what is it about? It's about distance. Emotional distance, time distance, identity distance. Every time saving feels boring, or saving feels small, or saving feels like it's for later, your brain quietly downgrades its importance compared to something that feels real right now, like a coffee, a sale, a small treat you've earned. And modern money tools make this distance even easier to ignore. Tap to Pay removes the friction of handing over physical cash. Subscriptions renew silently in the background, with no fresh decision required. One-click checkout deletes the pause where you might have reconsidered. Every modern convenience was designed to shrink the moment between wanting and buying, and that moment is exactly where saving decisions used to live. Here's the twist most people never expect. Saving more money isn't really a math problem or a budgeting problem. It's an imagination problem. The people who save consistently aren't necessarily more disciplined. They've simply found ways to make their future self feel closer, more real, more present in the decision. Some do this by literally aging a photo of themselves and looking at it before big purchases. Some name their savings account something specific, like the apartment fund or future me's emergency cushion, instead of a generic label like savings. Naming a goal gives your brain something concrete to picture instead of an abstract number that feels like it belongs to no one in particular. Others use automation, not because automation builds willpower, but because it removes the decision entirely. If the transfer happens before you ever see the money, There's no moment where your present self has to fight your future self for it. The fight simply never happens. This reframes the whole conversation around saving. You don't need to become a different kind of person. You need to change the timing and the framing of the decision so your brain isn't asked to choose between a real, vivid present and a vague, distant stranger. Think about your own bank account for a second. Is your savings labeled with a real goal or just the word savings? Does the transfer happen automatically, or does it depend on you remembering and resisting every single month? The answer probably explains more about your saving habits than any amount of self-criticism ever could. There's something almost relieving in this. You've probably spent years assuming you were just bad with money, or weak-willed, or impulsive, but none of that was ever really true. You were simply running on a brain that treats money in labeled pots, that feels losses harder than gains, and that struggles to emotionally connect with a future version of you that hasn't happened yet. Now, that's not a character flaw. That's just how human brains were built, long before banking apps and one-click purchases existed. Once you see it this way, the fix stops feeling like a fight against yourself. It becomes a design problem instead. You're not trying to force yourself to want less. You're trying to build a system where your future self gets a seat at the table before your present self spends the money. So tonight, when payday lands again and that small spike of feeling rich shows up, notice it. Notice how easily that extra money starts whispering that it's safe to spend. And remember, the money was never separate from you. It is you, just a version of you who hasn't arrived yet and who is far more real than your brain wants to admit. It's payday again. The notification lands on your phone, and for one quiet second, you feel rich. This time, you don't wait for tomorrow to decide what that feeling means. You already moved the money before the feeling had a chance to talk you out of it. The real reason you keep spending was never about willpower. It was about distance. And the moment you closed that distance, the money finally stayed.